Hi, Billy.
Hey, I'm in.
You are. Fantastic. Nice to meet you.
It's
Thank
a pleasure to meet you as well.
you. Thank you. So, what's it like over there at the moment?
Well, I would like to say it's a beautiful sunny day in Florida, but unfortunately it's a little hazy and looks like it might rain. I'm actually sitting out on a balcony. I'll show you here. Turn around here.
Okay.
I'm sitting out on a balcony overlooking what's called the Indian River.
Right.
And this is the intercoastal waterway in this part of Florida.
Wow.
So you can see the pools down there below me and the river in the distance there. But so I'm sitting out on the balcony because it was a nice spot to sit. But we may actually get some thunder in the background shortly.
That's fine. Thank you. I really appreciate you doing this. It's really, really gracious of you.
My pleasure.
So, I mean, thinking about, did I send you the questions at all? Or?
You might, if you sent them today.
Right.
I've been in meetings all morning.
No worries.
I've been on the phone for about the last 3 hours.
Okay.
So I haven't had a chance to check the emails. I got an alert came through to remind me of this meeting. So I hung up the phone. I was actually on the last call I was on. I was talking to Russell Levinston, who's the general manager, of the Leicester Riders.
Right. Okay. Wow.
So I was chatting with him, and we're recruiting a player from Derby over in England.
Right.
And I was trying to get Russell to help.
Right.
To make a call in on our behalf, since
Wow.
we have two of the Charnwood kids playing for us here at Florida Tech right now.
Okay, that's fantastic. I mean, as I say, it's a pleasure to meet you and say hello to you. It's fantastic, and I say thank you for doing this. So, very quickly, I mean, I've got 9 questions. So,
Okay.
who is Billy Mims? Please tell me. Give me some background.
Wow, that's a tough one there. Well, he's a career basketball coach. I've been doing this now. I just finished my 38th season on the sidelines as a basketball coach. I've coached professionally and collegiately my entire career. I've had the great blessing to be able to coach 3 professional franchises. My first, I coached the Neptune Basketball Club in Cork, Ireland, in the Irish Super League.
Right.
I was the head coach at Neptune. We were called Burgerland Basketball. I was the head coach at Burgerland Neptune in 1986-87, and we won the double. We won the league championship and the top 4 of the postseason championship. So we had great success there in Ireland. I also coached, as you might be aware of, the London Leopards.
Yeah.
I started that franchise in the BBL, took over there in 1994, and in 1997 and 1998, we were back-to-back BBL champions. In 97, we also won the National Cup as well. Then I became the head coach of the Leicester Riders and led their franchise to the first championship in club history in 2001. 18 months after I took over the Riders, we won the National Cup in Sheffield. And at the end of that season, we won the BBL championship at Wembley. So was blessed to have led 3 professional clubs to some of their greatest championship success. And for the last 15 years, I've been the head coach at an NCAA university in Paradise. I live in Melbourne, Florida right now. Beautiful, sunny, warm Florida weather, but and I've become the all-time winningest coach in Florida Tech basketball history. And at the moment, I have 2 English players, 2 young Brits over here in Florida helping me win games.
Fantastic, Billy. Fantastic. So, I mean, what as a coach then, and as a person yourself, what motivates you and obviously inspires other people?
Obviously, I think, I've always been in love with the game. I think what motivates me is when you have the opportunity, when you're blessed like I am. For the last 38 years, I've been paid to do what most people like to do sitting at home as an armchair coach. We call it over here the armchair quarterback.
Wow.
I mean, there are millions of people on the planet that would love to have my job. It's like, wow, I can be a professional coach. I coach in the NCAA Division II right now. And in Division II, there are only about 310 NCAA Division II men's basketball programs.
Mm-hmm.
So in the entire United States of America,
Yeah.
there are like 309 other people that do the same job I do. And
Right.
so to me, one of the great motivators has been that I love what I do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in love with the game. And for 38 years, I've been able to be paid to do what I love.
Fantastic. I mean, you know, as I say, I'm so like wow at the moment. It's like, I mean, I say it's a really pleasure to have you on. I mean, thinking about those 38 years and what you've done over since then, I mean, what's your fondest moment or is the, you know, achievement?
Well, you know, and I'm glad you asked that, Andy. I mean, obviously, I lived in England for 12 years, and some of the my most fondest memories in my 38-year career actually came in England. I got to say, you know, everybody knows that, you know, I led a couple of franchises to championships, but I also met my wife in England when I was coaching the London Leopards. We bumped into each other one night in Planet Hollywood, and literally bumped into each other. She was leaving the loo and I was heading to the loo. Fortunately, I was heading to the men's loo, but I did bump into her. She was coming out of the ladies. And we both turned around and did a double take. And now 23 years later, that double take has led to 3 children and my wife's career here in Florida as well. So the biggest championship I ever won in basketball was probably meeting my wife in London, England. And you think about some of the great memories of it, you know, for somebody from a small town in South Carolina. I grew up in a place called Moncks Corner, South Carolina.
Right.
I never thought I would leave America, but to be able to live in England for 12 years, to move to London, one of the most beautiful cities in the world, one of the most historic cities. I mean, I was like, you know, you've probably heard of the great American story, A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court.
I have, yes, I have.
I sort of felt like that kid, you know, that the story was written about. I kind of felt like I woke up, only I'm not a Connecticut Yankee. I'm more of a Johnny Reb because I was from South Carolina. So I was Johnny Reb in Queen Elizabeth's court, you know. But, you know, when I met my wife and got married, we got married in a church that was over 1,000 years old. Then we had our reception at a castle, Lymm Castle, down on the Kent coast. So, I mean, when you talk about a story that's like Disney, my life in England was like a Disney story. And then, obviously, you know, I led the London Leopards to 2 tremendous championships, back-to-back BBL titles. And I remember coaching great players like Robert Youngblood and John White and Eric Burks and great English players like Carl Brown and Ronnie Baker, you know, one of the smallest players to ever play in Britain, but certainly had the biggest heart of any kid I ever coached. And, you know, the opportunities that I got coaching professionally in England, I mean, you know, we were on Sky Sports at the time, and, you know, I got to meet some great people I got to work with Kevin Cadle. And for over 20 years, I was doing the studio analysis for the NBA Finals for Sky Sports. Even when I moved to Florida, I kept coming back to England, having that opportunity during the NBA Finals. So England will always be a second home to me. And, you know, the championships are memorable, but the relationships I developed there, the people I met, obviously all 3 of my children were born in England. And my son has even now had the experience of playing for the England basketball team.
Wow.
A couple summers ago, my son played for the England under-15s. And believe it or not, when you're a coach for life, and you're coaching on Sky Sports, live on Sky Sports, and you're in an arena. I remember we opened the MEN Arena with my London Leopards playing the Manchester Giants. And there were 14,000 people in the MEN Arena that night, the largest crowd at the time to ever witness a BBL basketball game. We won that game by 25 points. And you think that that's a great moment, you know? There's nothing like watching your son play wearing that England vest. We were in Copenhagen, in Copenhagen for a big international tournament, and my son was the leading scorer for the England under-15s in the bronze medal game. He helped England beat Sweden to win the bronze, and that was a moment that almost overshadowed every championship that I ever won as a coach. So certainly some great moments, some great memories of some great players, some great teams, but the relationships and the people I met along the way, some of the greatest memories and greatest moments.
Fantastic. Thank you, Billy. Right, thinking about that, and obviously my next question regards to why is inclusion and diversity so important, especially in basketball now and all the other sports that we seem to develop?
I mean, I think inclusion, diversity are important in life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is a global world now. Look at what we're going through right now.
Yeah.
This may be the first time in a long time that we truly have said we're all in this together.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a global pandemic that we're going through. You and I are both social distancing right now, and we're doing an interview, you know, around the world.
Yeah.
My wife is a university professor.
Yeah.
She's teaching everything online now. She doesn't go to a classroom.
Mm-hmm.
She's teaching like this through Zoom meetings online, and her students are all over the world when she's doing her lectures, right?
Yeah.
And we're all we talk about the global economy being shut down. We're all going to suffer through this,
mm-hmm.
but we are all in this together.
Yeah.
And I think in one sense, whereas it's a bad thing happening to us right now, maybe this is God's way of showing that we are all one planet, and that what happens, good and bad, affects us all.
Yeah.
So we got to work together. So I think sport
mm-hmm.
is one of those. I have one of my great friends in sport is a young man named Gareth McGuire. He lives in Belfast in Northern Ireland.
Right.
And he started a company a few years ago, Andy, called Sport Changes Lives.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he runs a program there bringing young people from all over the world to Belfast. And they work in community development throughout Belfast and throughout Ireland. But their common bond is sport.
Mm-hmm.
And they talk about diversity and inclusion. You know, his program is all about that.
Mm.
But then it's putting these people into the community in a positive way, helping however they can, and growing and maturing as global leaders one day.
Yeah.
And the common link is sport. And I think that's what sport has done to really help the world. I mean, you look at the initiatives going on right now, even in football. You look at the anti-racism issues going on, the anti-bullying issues going on.
Mm-hmm.
I love it when you see, you know, like back here in America, and you see a female joining a men's football team and going out to American football.
Yeah.
And you see her putting on the pads and going out there and kicking field goals in what's always been considered an all-male sport.
Mm.
How about this past year? One of the teams in the Super Bowl had an assistant coach who's a woman. You know, right now, Greg Popovich, you know, again, visionary that he is with the San Antonio Spurs.
Yeah.
He was the first coach to have like the United Nations of NBA basketball. You know, how many different players from different countries around the world that Greg Popovich bring to the Spurs? But he's also the first NBA coach to hire a full-time female assistant.
Fantastic.
So the world is all about breaking down barriers.
Yeah.
And I think basketball and sport have been huge. Look at it in England right now. I know that the big four where you sit are still football, rugby, cricket.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, basketball may be in the minds of the media there a very, very distant fourth. In some circles, it's fifth behind darts, you know? And I get upset with that, not because I don't like the other sports, but simply because basketball isn't given the due for what it does. I know even back when I coached in England, there were more people participating in basketball than there were in football.
Yeah.
It had become the largest participation sport. And look at what you've been, you know, tremendously. wheelchair basketball. I mean, I did that when I was with the Lesson Riders. We worked together with the Wheelchair Association there, and we did a game one day, and I had to go in the wheelchair and play. And I've played basketball all my life. Two things I can tell you about that day. That was the hardest basketball game I ever played, and it might have been the most fun basketball game I ever played. And the respect that I had for the athletes, the wheelchair athletes, playing basketball just grew exponentially. But when you look at what basketball has done, you know, as far as all walks of life, trying to find an avenue for inclusion, trying to find an avenue, you know, to get everyone involved in the game, to say that this truly is sport for all.
Yeah.
I'm proud to say that in a few ways that my career, I've been a little part of that. And, you know, this is a global world, and sport, to me, nothing in the world brings people together like sport. Look, every 4 years, when the World Cup comes around every 4 years, the world is watching, right?
Absolutely.
And I think it's the same thing in basketball now.
Yeah.
When the Olympics take place, I know the Olympics got founded for track and field, basically, and athletics, right? But you can't tell me today that when the basketball world comes to the Olympics, that more tickets are sold to watch the basketball Olympic championship than any other event. So sport brings the world together. And today, I think football and basketball, without a doubt, are still the top two in doing that worldwide.
Fantastic, Billy. So thinking about your message to, obviously, you think about the medical staff on the front line now, all the key workers that are doing a fantastic job, and all the people at home at the moment who are possibly struggling now after being so many weeks in staying at home to save lives. What would your message be to all those people, and obviously to the key workers and to the medical staff that are doing such a fantastic job?
Well, like you said, number one, Andy, hats off to the people that actually are dealing with this. I know it sounds bad to say this, but, you know, I'm in Florida. I'm sitting looking out over the intercoastal waterway, the Indian River. It's about 80 degrees today, maybe 85 degrees. There's a nice breeze blowing. And fortunately, I still have a job. So I'm working from home, and I'm doing my job, and I'm still doing what I love. And yet I'm healthy right now. And most of the people I know around me are healthy. But those on the front line are seeing it. Those folks in Italy and what they've been going through. The folks in New York, you know, which has sort of been the epicenter of the pandemic in the United States, what they've had to go through. You know, certain places around the world, the folks originally in Wuhan, China, you know, what they've had to go through. I'm blessed. I mean, I haven't seen that here where I am in Florida. So I just watch the news and I see what other people are going through. And I watch those first responders, those healthcare workers, those scientists behind the scenes right now who are frantically spending, out of a 24-hour day, I bet they're spending 18 of those 24 hours every day trying to figure this mess out. You know, hats off to those people, because they're the true heroes. Everybody wants to look at LeBron James and Michael Jordan and, you know, the David Beckhams of the world, the Ronaldos of the world, and they worship those, when truly we ought to be worshiping the doctors and the nurses and the scientists that are trying to win the biggest championship the world's ever seen. And that's getting us out of this mess and making sure it doesn't come back to haunt us again in the future. So one, I want to say thank you to those, and hats off to those people. And then to all the people that are struggling to get through this, people that have lost their jobs, I would like to say to those people, believe, okay? Because belief is a strong thing to me.
Yeah.
Teams win championships, Andy, because they believe they can. Okay? It's hard to beat a team that believes in themselves.
Yeah.
I think it's hard to beat a person who believes in themselves. I don't care whether you have more to work with, whether you have more talent, whether you have more skills, whether you have more money. it's hard to beat that person where every time you knock them down, they keep getting back up because they believe they're going to find a way to win.
Mm-hmm.
They believe. And I think right now the world has to believe we're going to get through this. Okay?
Absolutely.
To me, I think belief is number one.
Yeah.
Okay? You got to believe. Number two, you got to stay positive. Okay? Even if you get sick with it. Right now, if I got sick, I'm not afraid. If I got sick, I'm going to be positive. I'm going to get better. I'm going to fight this thing. I'm going to get better. So if I get ill with it, I'm not worried about that. If I happen to catch it, I trust the doctors and nurses and people that will look after me. I trust the scientists that are going to find a vaccine, that are going to find cures, that are going to make you get down. You go to hospital, you get better. You don't die. Okay? You got to be positive. I believe one of my theories of coaching has always been AIE, and that stands for attitude is everything. I believe that if you have the right attitude, the positive attitude, the attitude of belief, that you can overcome anything. So to me, the most powerful force on the planet is attitude.
Fantastic. Thank you. That's amazing. The last question. No, that's true. The last question then, and obviously, I was thinking about your 38 years and everything that you've done, which is, absolutely fantastic and illustrious and brilliant, because you're so legendary to have you on, is if you could think of a quote, any quote that relates to motivation and inspiration, especially now in these challenging times, what would that quote be and why?
I'm really glad you asked that question. And I didn't look at the questions beforehand. In my long career in basketball, I kind of fell in love for the game when I was a young kid living in South Carolina. I grew up on what's called Tobacco Road. All right.
Right. Yeah.
Atlantic Coast Conference. Anybody that knows anything about college basketball in America knows that the best basketball league over here is called the ACC, the Atlantic Coast Conference. And that's made up of teams like the Duke Blue Devils, Coach K, Mike Krzyzewski, the North Carolina Tar Heels, Roy Williams, their coach now, but their legendary Dean Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Well, back when I was young, Coach, the North Carolina State Wolfpack was coached by somebody that I was fortunate to meet, a guy by the name of Jim Valvano. He was known as V, his beloved coach. He was from New York. He was a real slick New Yorker. And he came down to Raleigh, North Carolina, in the heart of Tobacco Road, ACC basketball. And he came down this slick New Yorker, and he promised them, I'm going to change the way we play basketball. I'm going to take the North Carolina Wolfpack to a championship. We're going to win it all here. And in his greatest season at North Carolina State, they were one of the lowest seeds in the ACC to ever win the ACC tournament. The lowest seed going in. Every night, they had to play a higher seed than them, and they marched to the ACC championship. Now, that year, there were no at-large teams in the NCAA tournament. So you had to win the ACC just to get in. So they got in that year to the national tournament, Andy, with the worst record and the most losses of any team ever in the NCAA tournament. And he had a saying with his kids. He said, we were the lowest seed to ever win the ACC tournament. We're going to be the lowest seed in the NCAA national tournament. But our thought is survive and advance. He said, that's what we do. Every game, we survive and advance. In the NCAA tournament, every night, they were the underdogs. They got all the way to the national championship. It was the first NCAA championship I ever attended. It was in the pit in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And the final was the North Carolina State Wolfpack, the lowest seed, the most losses to ever get there, against Houston, Phi Slamma Jamma, the Houston Cougars, who had Akeem Olajuwon, Clyde the Glide Drexler, one of the greatest teams in college basketball history, with several NBA Hall of Famers, future Hall of Famers on that team.
Man.
The North Carolina State Wolfpack came back and won that game. Jim Valvano ran around the court like a madman. He proved the impossible. Now, the end of that story is this. Jim Valvano, a few years later, came down with cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And he fought the biggest battle of his life. And to this day, the largest cancer research foundation in America is called the V Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's for Jim Valvano. And every year we have a game in this country called Coaches versus Cancer. And we raise money to support the V Foundation. But I can remember that Jim Valvano, who was a friend of mine, who I met, who I worked his summer basketball camps. He stood on the stage at the ESPYs. Have you ever heard of ESPN's annual award show called the ESPYs? He walked up on stage with his body riddled with cancer, Andy, and could hardly walk at this point. The ESPYs were going to present him an award, and they said, "Are you able to come?" He said, "Yes, I'll come. I'll be there, and I will walk on stage by myself." So they wanted to help him up. He refused help. He walked up on stage with his body riddled with cancer, and he stood there and he said, "Cancer may have taken my body. Cancer may have taken my brain. Cancer may have taken my life. Because of my job, I can no longer coach those kids. But it will never take my spirit." He said, "I will never, ever give up." Jim Valvano's dying words, to this day, the theme of the V Foundation: never, ever give up. And you know what? That's what the world needs to do right now. Never, ever give up.
Billy, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to meet you. Maybe not in person, but maybe one day I'd love to come over and say hello to you personally. But thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure. And hopefully we'll get so much global feedback from this. It's just immense. Really, really appreciate it. And have a great day in Florida. And I'll enjoy the rest of my day in Birmingham.
Hey, Andy, thank you so much for the opportunity to visit with you today. The pleasure was all mine. It's been a blessing to chat with you. Thank you. And you are always welcome here in Florida. Anytime, you'll get a front row seat behind my bench, whatever you like.
Thank you very much, Billy. You take care.
Cheers,
Bye-bye.
Andy.
Bye-bye.